Dames en heren, jullie aandacht voor Peter Lamborn Wilson.
I'll read a couple of sonnets about weather, okay? The first one is called Cheap Weather. Money, like nature, lacks the personal touch. The landlord or the worm, dead is dead. The social Darwinists were right, but none survived. War declared, but only in your head. Last bit of wilderness that can't be mapped, the monster from the id, the perfect storm. Stay tuned for the Manichaean weather report, the nihilism of the easily bored. Après moi, le déluge, live at 5. Go take the dog for its shot of Novocaine. Les neiges d'antan, okay, but who expected a future with fucking hurricanes? Short-term memory loss at easy rates. Under the skin of the world, one suffocates. Want another one?
Yeah.
Okay. Global warming. These are all poems about weather. Global warming. Cling to winter. Don't let winter go. From gelid woods where time is running slow. Discolored porcelain shards of rotten ice. The archaeological remnants of the snow. I dream I'm one of a gang of selfish giants, hoarding up all narratives like nuts and port. What prince of spring could resist this frozen garden, boarded up like some bankrupt Nordic resort? Perhaps we should spend our summers in Patagonia, Antarctic whalers lost in the 7th clime, in insulated igloos, musty with sleep, away from the migraine pulse of vacated time. Exiled till autumn, wanderers and rovers, and not come back till Club Med freezes over.
Wonderful, Peter.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, just one more?
Yep.
It's sort of a trio here. This one is called 1911. The Franklin that I'm referring to is, of course, Benjamin Franklin, okay, who invented electricity, or discovered it, they say, by flying a kite. Do you all know this story here in Holland?
I think
Flying the kite, and the lightning hits the kite, and he discovers electricity? Yeah. Okay. That devil Franklin with his bloody kite. Money begets money. Electricity snatches mourning from night's dignity and sullies air with muzak and with light, L-I-T-E. Darkness means darkness. Where to find an island out of the drift of synthetic fearlessness, O Mallarmé? Velvet studded with earnestness and naive planets and stars like Dorsky's sand. Let's run out of gasoline. Let's not stay in touch unless we can be in touch. Darkness to flesh, unless we can smell each other in the dark. Oh, 1911, we don't ask for much. Complexity is cheap. Fall into the mesh of stars like a spent fireworks fading arc.
Peter, one of your books, TAZ, Temporary Autonomous Zone, a phrase that's a little bit older, but what did you mean by that at the time?
1986, 1984, this is when I was coming up with this idea. And I thought that in the absence of the revolution, it would be better if we could experience free life, even if only in one small place and for one small time.
Lately in Amsterdam, people are talking about what they call here broedplaatsen, which are breeding grounds where things happen at a specific time, in a specific setting with a set of people, sometimes for a longer period, sometimes only for a shorter period. Is that what you meant by temporary autonomous zones?
Maybe. That sounds organized and planned, and the temporary autonomous zone is not always organized and planned. Sometimes it's spontaneous, in which case I suppose there would be a slight difference there. But why not? Yeah, sure. Anything which is creates its own rules within itself and is not directed from outside, as long as it persists as a zone, then that would qualify. So if the places you're talking about are just nightclubs, no. But if they're, since I never heard this phrase before, I don't have any examples in my mind.
Oh, the government is even spending 90 million guilders to support it, but they do it now because they've driven away all these breeding zones and all these hacker places and all these squatters who made environments really not planned that are now considered as an economic and social benefit to the city, and now that they're nearly all gone, they say, hey, we should support it.
Yeah, no, those are not autonomous zones. I mean, a government could not possibly be involved in a temporary autonomous zone. In America, maybe Holland is different, you know, but I think once you have the state involved, then you're not autonomous. They can tell you that you're free, but if they have the purse strings, if they have the money, then you're not autonomous. You might be a zone and you might be temporary, but you're not really autonomous, are you?
Well, that's the thing in Holland. Everybody gets money from the government. So.
Yeah, it's what was that phrase that Marcuse used? Oppression through tolerance, something like that. I can't remember what the phrase was. I often feel that
repressive tolerance.
Repressive tolerance, yeah. I see that you're familiar with the phrase, and it's probably because you've heard it applied to the Dutch.
Yeah, every time that they allow demonstrations up to a certain extent, we know it is a repressive tolerance. Let them do their little thing, so they don't get out of hand.
Yeah, give them the squat, then they become landlords, right? Yeah. And then they're property owners, just like any other property owner. So the way to destroy squatting is to tolerate it. They're starting to do this in New York now. You know, before they would bring in the tanks, literally, they would bring in tanks and wrecking balls. Now they've decided, you know, there's a kinder, gentler way to repress people.
Which is make them part of the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the feeling I get is that your temporary autonomous zones are like the bubbles in a fluid. When you heat it up, the bubbles come out. Yeah. Here, unexpected, and they.
There should be. I mean, I always felt that there should be a spontaneous element, but that if you tried to say, oh, it can only be spontaneous, then you're not being spontaneous. So that organization then becomes possible. Okay. In this, but. You know, organization from authoritarian or even authoritative sources from above. No, this doesn't work. In my mind, this doesn't work. Okay. Well, eventually, whatever the live culture is that you were working with will go dead. In that way, I don't. You tell.
Well, we're talking about it in live, but we have this little conversation to promote the event Het Woord in Ruigoord. Morgenavond dus Pieter Lambert-Wilson. Vanavond, vrijdag, kunt u ook nog gaan, als u dit ziet, voor 9:00. En dan zondagmiddag is er ook weer Het Woord in Ruigoord. Allemaal met bekende dichters en het wordt heel gezellig. Een Pinksterweekend vol met literatuur, poëzie. En wat mij betreft dus wel degelijk een tijdelijke autonome zone op een kilometer of 10 afstand van Amsterdam. U bent welkom.